We are live. Welcome, everyone. We're talking about Skeleton Crew episode 5. I got Josh Nelson here as always. And Josh, you messaged me Christmas Eve night when this is going on. It's just played, and you're like, have you watched it yet? I was like, I've not watched it yet. I'm going to stop everything. I'm going to watch it. And you said, there's one part that you know I loved. Josh, what was the part that you absolutely loved?
I almost got my wish. Wim almost cut his leg off with the lightsaber. What an idiot. What an idiot.
I immediately got the vibes of the I don't know if you've ever seen it, the meme of Luke Skywalker when he's looking right into the
Right.
into the lightsaber and someone filled it in, like going right through his head. Like that was the same vibe I got when I saw that. I was like, oh man, my man almost cut his feet off. That would have been really sad. That, like the way it happened was really
I would have
great.
loved it.
You would have been the only person on earth that loved it. So I think I'm glad that it ended the way it did, so you could enjoy it while everyone else was not horrified. So it worked out. It worked out really well.
Everyone wins, yes.
So I want to get into it. I know, Along Mr. Hand makes the good point. The Bears start at 7, and I know everybody's just dying to watch the Bears. So we want to get in before that. I'll be live again at 8 for the regular 108 podcast, but I want to get into this. And the show starts. They're on Wim's dad. He's working at the office, and he's trying to initiate this plan where he's breaking into the database. The Neil's mom gave him the little contraption to do so. He is a terrible liar. He gets caught, but luckily when he gets caught, he gets sent to Fern's mom.
Yeah.
She is now in on the plan. Josh, what is their plan and how does it go terribly wrong?
Well, it's got to be the supervisor, right? Like that was my assumption, was they're trying to get as much information as possible or find a way to contact the supervisor, maybe even learning like what the supervisor's doing and helping them get their kids back. So I think that's what they're trying to do. And really weird, like the energy surge and the robot's able to detect that tells me this is not a first that someone is going down this road. So they are not the first ones to do it. So it makes me wonder what has happened in the past. But yeah, to me, it feels like they're at a dead end right now, unless they figure out a way to actually go to the tower. And I wonder if that's the next move, Chorizy.
Well, it sounds like what they were trying to get were some clearance codes to get a message outside of the barrier.
Right. To the Republic, yeah.
So, well, that's the funny thing, right? Because they don't know about the Republic. They know about the old Republic.
Right.
They don't know about the new. They don't know about the war. They don't know about any of this stuff. So, to your point, this is not the first time someone's tried this. They're obviously like the little mechanism that she puts together to do this. Like she didn't figure that out, right? Like someone else has done this before. People have tried to get around these things. You see Fern's mom able to shut down the droid in her office. I just feel like they're going to get the message out there, and it's going to be like either to accidentally to the New Republic, and then tips the New Republic off that there's this planet that nobody knows about. And the New Republic, as we've seen in Ahsoka, is pretty poorly run. So that's not going to be great. And then the
desperate need of a reorg.
Yeah. Or they call the very pirates that are chasing their children home. So
Right.
Like, I think it's going to be one of the two. It's either going to be they get in touch with some pirates and they're like, hey, our kids are out there and we live on this, planet of riches. Please find our children and then come and take all of our money. So it's going to be bad, whatever they choose to do. And it's going to put them in a really, really bad situation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Oh,
So
good.
but the other thing, like, I don't even know what they're doing though in this office, right? And this kind of harkens back to even like Andor. Like, what are people doing? Like, why was this always depicted this way? And maybe I've been in corporate America for too long, where you do have to like seriously ask, like, I don't know what anyone's doing in this office. Like, what are you analyzing? And why hasn't there been an uprising before? But I guess if the pay is good, just like reality, just keep your head down and grind through
Yeah,
the keyboard and just get home
it's
as quickly as possible.
so it, like we find out, right? We find out that from Captain Renaud that this is where the last Old Republic mint is, right? Like
Right.
so their planet is in charge of printing money. So I guess they're regulating the currency. Why it takes so many people, I don't know. Like it seems like overly bureaucratic and ridiculous, which is maybe the point. So
Right.
like you know, everybody has a job so that they have a job, I guess. Um, and then that just keeps the money flowing around, and no one's hungry, no one's rich. It's kind of like this ideal society, right? But no one has any rights because the robots will come and shut that shit down as soon as you as soon as you get out of line. So
Right.
I think it's kind of a weird universe that like it just seems very foreign to us, but like to them, this is what they do. Uh, I will say, so they go to the planet that SM-33 remembers. So it's like Skull Mountain or whatever he calls
Mm-hmm.
it, and it's this new resort world, like kind of like it's got like Canto vibes from Last Jedi, your favorite movie, and the it didn't get built overnight, right? Like that thing is a massive structure. It's crazy, but this is where everything is, and it's built on top of it. It makes me wonder how long ago was Captain Rena alive? Like
Yeah.
how old are these stories? And so I guess the question to you is, do you think this was like hundreds of years, the indifference in when Captain Renaud went to At-Aten, and like when they actually discovered the ship?
I think so. I'm gonna say maybe two. What was the time frame we determined? How long ago was the Old Republic?
So that's like thousands of years ago. But
Oh no.
if you're looking
Yeah.
at the High Republic, that's a couple hundred years ago. And
Okay, so let's go with that. Let's say 200 years.
and that's kind of tipped off too, because when they go and find his treasure, that lightsaber, like if you read about it online, so like if you see it at first, you're like, okay, it's got the gold in it. It's very, very High Republic looking. But usually they were like more ornate, like these big like hilts and stuff. But like later, as like they started to fight more and more, they were more utilitarian. And so like that kind of plainish looking one, a lot of people are saying like between like, 200, 250 years old
Okay.
at this time. So if you think in that era, like he might he might be dead for like a really long time. Like, and so it goes back to the theory of like there's actually no one running that planet. Like it's just like a machine in a room, like just running that planet. Because like we had both thought, hey, maybe it's rented, right? And so that's kind of one thing there. That we'll get into who we might think he is in a little bit, but like I don't know. I think a couple hundred years sounds about right to me. How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And now it's Lanupa, right? That sounds like
Lanupa.
a
Lanupa
sleep
was
medication.
yes. And that planet was awesome. That looked like a place that looks if I were in that galaxy, that's a planet I'm hanging out with. Maybe I'm not in the mud bats with the moons,
No.
or the Muns or whatever they're called, the Plagueuses. But definitely a cool hangout. They did have a gigantic hut there, which was awesome.
Yes.
So So that's actually, one of the theories that's getting floated around on the internets now is, Kelly McDonald is in this episode, and she
Mm-hmm.
plays Pocket, and she said that she works for like a private, she works privately as a bounty hunter for someone. A lot of people are speculating that that's Rada the Hutt, and that we're gonna see Kelly McDonald, like she survived the acid bath, and we're gonna see her again in Mando and Grogu, working for
Oh,
Jeremy
okay.
Allen White's Rada the Hutt. I read a little bit about this, and this movie is sounding weirder and weirder as it goes. Apparently, Rada the Hutt is like a ripped uh, Hutt, like he's like Jabba the Hutt, but he's like all buffed out. I don't know how I feel about that.
How?
It seems really
No.
weird. I don't know what parts are muscle that you could you could buff
He's a
out.
slug. How can a slug be muscle? No, I do want to give that a shout out. Like as soon as I heard Pocket's accent, I'm like, oh, that's Kelly McDonald. Like she has a really distinct Irish accent. She's in No Country for Old Men. Obviously, not an Irish accent there. That's her Texan accent. But yeah, she's
is it
the main
Irish or
character.
Scottish? I forget, but like because she's in Train Spotting. That's like the first place I've ever seen her.
Oh shoot, am I getting this wrong? I thought she was Irish.
I can't remember. It's one of the two, and we're
We got to get it right though. We got to go
you
to
gotta get it right.
IMDb because
I'm gonna guess
I'm not
Scottish.
pissing
I'm
off
gonna guess
the
Scottish
Irish.
just because she's in Train Spotting, and I feel like everybody in Train Spotting was Scottish.
She
We've
is
got-
Scottish.
We've got
Damn
an
it.
Irishman in the comments saying Scottish.
Scottish.
So I think I'll agree there.
Thank you.
So
You know what?
Switch-
It's the McDonald that throws me off. My bad.
switching gears a little bit. So we're speaking of the mud baths, speaking of all that stuff. KB is hesitant to go down there, and Fern more so than KB about letting her go down there. And there was some mention of corrosion. There was
Mm-hmm.
so it was like weird, and they wouldn't explain what's going on. I initially thought like a health thing, but then I remember like in an earlier episode, she's like, I don't need to sleep. And then her parents were both women, which, hey, maybe in the Star Wars universe that is possible. But we saw in the Acolyte that seemed like that was not a possibility. Do you think she's human? Do you think there's some kind of reveal here that KB is like a small wonder, basically, and not human? And that's how she's like
Hey.
able to read all the different ruins. She does all these different things. It's not just that mechanism in her head.
That she's a droid,
A droid, of
like an
some sort.
android, a humanoid.
Yeah.
I'll run with that if the supervisor is also someone like her.
There we go. Maybe that is the dominant species of this planet. That brings me to my next question, though. Captain Rennet, we see face blurred.
Mhm.
One of the things that I've been seeing, and one of the things that I feel is a very viable option here, is that he's the same species as Neil,
Oh,
and that species only exists on this planet, but they're descendants of Rennet, not of some race that was there already or species. that was
Okay.
there.
so little Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean,
A little bit. I mean,
Squid
like,
Face.
it was tough I tried to freeze frame it a few times and see if we could get like a good look at like the face, but I couldn't get anything. Like they were very intentional about not doing that. But there is in that little treasure area, there's like a Neil looking elephant man
Yes.
statue there. Neil was the one that was able to figure out the puzzle of the whole place. Like it
Mhm.
just feels like Neil is important for some reason. It feels like KB is also going to be a very important piece in the last couple episodes. I feel like that might be more hacking into the system, but Neil, I think, might learn something of his lineage.
Interesting. Okay, so is Neil's dad the supervisor?
That'd be something. I mean, he looks
We
kind of
haven't
mean in
seen-
those pictures, Like they showed him like for a second in the house, and you couldn't really see him. But like the
Mhm.
official pictures that came out of the characters, like he looks a little tough. He doesn't look like he takes much shit. So I'm like, I want to know a little bit more about this. And like you introduce one of your main characters as a brand new species in Star Wars. There's got to be more to the story than just like
Yeah.
just this dude. And to make such a big deal about like, no, this ain't the same thing as Max Rebo. Like, I don't know. It feels like they're gonna show us something here.
Okay. I'll go with that. Then is Neil the heir to the supervisor?
That's what I'm
Does
thinking.
Neil go dark on us at the end?
What if Neil is like deep inside, he's got that pirate mentality. Maybe Neil kills Jod. That would be something.
Yes, Neil leading the mutiny. I'm totally on board.
Honestly, he could do no wrong for me. Neil cannot do anything wrong. The only other thing that I could think of with the rented thing is like if it connects back to something else, right? Like if it's like if it's another major character from something in Star Wars, but like I'm really not finding that. Like I'm really not like
No.
thinking of like what was like 200 years ago that would make sense. Like I don't see it being anything from the High Republic books because it would be a terrible reveal. Like you would have had to read all the books to be like, oh yes, it's this guy from the High Republic book. It's like no, that's not really gonna be like it's Markion Rowe being the guy would be ridiculous. Like no one would know what that is. So I'm pretty heavily invested in the Neil's family theory. But speaking of wild theories, this is one I've not seen on the internet, but I was thinking about it as I'm watching Jod talk to Wim. So it seems like he's just fumbling through old Jedi platitudes, right? And he's just like doing a very bad job of convincing Wim when he's trying to cheer him up that like, get, let go of your attachments and these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the way he fumbles through them are very close to like what the Sith believe in. And so my question to you was, do you think that Jod was actually a Jedi Padawan, which many people are speculating, or was he a Sith acolyte? And maybe connected to Plagueis, and when Plagueis was killed by Sidious, he was out on his own, becomes a pirate, because he's not very timid about showing his ability to use the Force. He's obviously a bad person. And like the way he looked at that lightsaber and then pulled it to himself felt a lot less Jedi than it would Sith. And so I'm just kind of like throwing it out there. Are they trying to make Plagueis happen? Because if you think about it math-wise, if we're using Jude Law's real age, which he's like 51, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You go back this is like 9 ABY, 19 BBY is the Order 66, like 28 years. He'd be in his early 20s, so he wouldn't be a Padawan. So like that's where I'm going. Does this have any legs to it? Or do you think I'm just going, I just want things to happen. I want someone to be a Sith.
I think it's you want things to happen here. I'm still going to go with ex-Jedi Padawan that turns bad. Because if he was truly a Sith acolyte, man, going down the pirate route, he just would have went more into the dark side of the Force. Because I would argue he's a better Jedi than a Sith acolyte right now. The Sith acolyte would have been very helpful. Oh, you want to cause a mutiny? Shoot lightning out of your fingers. Like, in the mutiny right then and there. So I'm still going to say just steer it off course and becoming a Jedi. Just didn't see the benefit of it. There's too many of them. It's not the kind of life that he wanted to live. And he veered into becoming a pirate. So that's what I'm thinking. And I know it's coming. I know we're going to have this moment where he restores his honor and he saves the kids. But I am curious in whose lightsaber that is, and if he's actually going to use it properly. Better than Wim.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see him use it, right? Like, so, like, I think that's what's coming up next. Josh, what do you think does happen next? What's next on the agenda for these guys?
Well, now we're in the Goonies, right? Because the whole trap that they went down. So obviously a Sarlacc pit. Neil saves the day with the trunk. He holds on to, he's like, yeah, just holds on to like a stick or a fane, and they climb out of the Sarlacc pit. That clearly happens. I mean, Jod's got to get away from these other pirates. I don't think they all died, unless this is the worst pirate crew of all time.
Yeah, and they only sent 2 ships, right? Like, so they definitely confirmed that he was there. I'm assuming that a couple of them lived, right? Like, I'm assuming Kelly MacDonald lived at least to tell the tale. So yeah, they're coming after them.
So I think we're going to see him use a lightsaber in the next episode. That's my big prediction. We'll see some type of duel and that he uses the lightsaber. But from here, like, I'm not quite sure what's next, but I'm totally okay with that. Like, in our last episode, I wasn't crazy about episode 4. I thought there was some really poor editing decisions, clearly some production budget decisions. I love this episode. This was a very fun episode. I definitely would go back and rewatch this episode multiple times. Like, I think they have found their footing here as far as the show. I think I know on Rotten Tomatoes, this is getting a much higher score from both critics and fans than The Acolyte. I am pleasantly surprised with how much I like this show, and I was very concerned about the whole angle of it, and I don't think it's going to finish as well as Andor, but I had that same feeling about Andor, like, why in the world are we making this show? And then you watch Andor, and we raved about it. I'm like, this show's phenomenal. And maybe that's how this is going to end. We're going to have a big finish with the skeleton crew. We could just have mass chaos at Aden, in which we find out who the supervisor is. Jod saves the kids reluctantly. They're going back to the planet. All these pirates are chasing after them. Nobody knows what's going on. You don't know who to root for other than you want Wim to die and Neil to live and take over as the new pirate king. That's what I'm hoping for.
I feel you. And I think that, I think we got 3 episodes left. So I think the next
lot to do.
The next episode is going to be the escape from Lanupa. And so my guess is that the only other way out is down that same hatch that the kids went. They got to go down that way. They'll run into the kids. They'll find the kids, get them out of there. They'll all get out of there, get away from the pirates. And then the parents will tell the pirates exactly where the kids are trying to get to. We'll follow them. So that should be fun. I'm gonna guess that the last episodes, I think they'll have multiple episodes on at Aten. And this is, it'll definitely, I think everybody's thinking this is where Jod is going to, turn, and he's going to be good, and he's going to save the kids, and that's how it's going to end. I think that either Wim or Neil or maybe Fern is going to kill Jod. Like, I think that that's how this story has to end, that, like, as peaceful as Neil wants to be, sometimes you just got to step up, and he might have to cut Jod's head off. So that's if he accidentally cuts Wim's head off too, you'll be happy. But I think that, to me, I think that they have made mention many times that while there are kids in this show, this is not a kid's show. Jod's got to go. They've set him up to be murdered, not to be saved.
What if? Okay, they send out that communication. The communication finally gets out after the barrier gets wrecked at the end of this episode to connect this with the Mandalorian and Grogu. What if the people that received the communication is Thrawn?
See, I don't hate that. It could be Thrawn, and that's something where being able to print a bunch of money, would be very helpful to his cause. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, that could be one, or it could be a thing of Thrawn hears it, the New Republic hears it, the pirates hear it, and now you've got like everybody converging into one place, and it could be like the battle site for you know, some upcoming show or movie that's coming out.
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I always want Thrawn in it, so you've sold me there. Like
Yeah.
I'll take Thrawn or one of his, you know, one of his minions. You know, Eli
Yeah.
Vanto hears about it, and you know, we just assume that he's a pirate, and he turns out, you know, he's working on behalf of the Chiss. So a lot of possibilities, a lot of possibilities. They've built this show very well to kind of allow you to think a lot of different ways of how this can go. The parents are clumsy as fuck, which is great because it definitely feels, you know, like those what are the Amblin movies of like the 80s, you
Yeah.
know, like all of those where like, you know, the kids are great, the parents are fucked up. So like I it just feels that way, and I really think they're doing a great job with it. So we shall see. And we will be back next week to talk about this more. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Go enjoy the Bears for a little while. Once they're getting blown out, you know, come see me on the From the 108 podcast. I'll be there tonight. Have a good night, everybody.